Welcome to this bonus episode of the Left Behind Game Club. This is a follow-up to our Warhammer The End Times Vermintide episode number 22. Moe and I spoke over Discord with Victor Magnuson. He is a game designer and producer at Fatshark Games. They are currently working on Warhammer Vermintide 2, a follow-up to the original game we played a few weeks ago. In this interview, we talk through Victor's journey up until now, as well as the original game released in 2015, and its sequel, whose exact release date has not yet been announced. Let's get into it.
You're listening to the Left Behind Game Club.
So one of the cool things that we kind of found out is you started in finance, right? Originally. Yeah. So the cool thing about that is I did the exact same thing. So I went through business school. I went through the finance route, and I started working in insurance. And I hated it. I switched into development quite recently, maybe within the past 2 years, and now I'm a full-time developer. How did you kind of go through that? Like, what was the transition like? What made you switch, and what did you do kind of in that process?
Well, it went down like this. In Sweden, we have, or we used to have mandatory military service. So I did that after I finished our equivalent of college. And then after that, I didn't really know what to study and what to do. And then I met an old friend of mine over like New Year's, and he was studying finance in a small university city called Lund here in Sweden. And he was like, you should just come down and just study something. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I decided that night that I was going to Lund and start studying finance. And like, it wasn't like a big passion for me or anything. It was just like, I didn't really know what to do or what I wanted to do with my life. And finance just felt like economics and finance is always something good to like, it's a good backbone, whatever you want to do in the future. So I ended up studying finance for about like 3 years. And how it ended was I had like a summer internship at one of the big, stockbrokers here in Stockholm, and I just felt that it was like the most boring job ever, and like if I got my boss's job I would like kill myself. And then another old friend of mine had started studying game design and art in another small city called Visby, and I had no idea that you could study game design at all. I've just never heard of it. It never really occurred to me that it was even possible. This was like 12 years ago or something like that. So I wasn't done with my finance studies, but then I just stopped studying finance and moved to Visby, started studying game design and art. I never thought like when I applied to the school, I was like, I'm never going to get in, but I just sent some like random application and I got in and I was like, okay. And I went over there and started studying game design, and like gaming has always been like my biggest passion and like my absolutely biggest hobby. And even before that, I was like thinking about going into either the music industry or the movie industry, because I always felt that I wanted to do something creative or something. Maybe not be the creative person, because like I couldn't write music, I couldn't sing, or I couldn't play any instruments, but I wanted to work within a creative industry. So I thought like working at like a record company or something like that. When I was supposed to study when I went to school, I just played video games anyway. So I might as well put that all that knowledge to work. And then it just clicked. So I went there for 3 years.
That's so funny, because as you were starting off with that, I looked over at Jacob and I started laughing because I went through almost a similar thing. I started working for a big pension fund here in Canada, and it was like just working for making money. And it was just like you. I went through the finance and business because it's a good thing to be in and it's a good base to have.
It's a safe bet.
It's literally that.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So that's exactly what happened. And then I stopped learning. It was very like repetitive work, like not really thinking. And I said, you know what? I need to find something I'm passionate in. And it kind of organically occurred. Like I started doing like weekend coding classes and stuff like that, and it snowballed, and I found my passion. And it's kind of really cool to meet someone else who kind of went through the exact same thing, and now you're a designer. That's really neat.
Yeah, like 12 years ago, like studying game design and gaming, it wasn't really a big thing. I think this university that I went to was one of the first ones in Sweden that had it. There was some like smaller schools that had some I don't know what's called in English, but it's like a 2-year thing where you're supposed to like learn a profession. So there were some of those, but it was still not really a big thing. So I just couldn't imagine that you could do it. So it just felt like, whoa, what you can study to make games?
Someone will pay you money to do this? What? Yeah.
So you've been at Fatshark almost since the beginning. Do you want to tell us what your journey at Fatshark was like?
Yeah, so I started there like 1 year after I finished my education. I started at Fatshark as a QA, or like I was their first QA. This was back when we were still like a subsidiary company of a other Swedish company called GRIN. When I started working, we helped them develop Terminator Salvation. We did all of the like rail sequences in that game. And then we started work. We were supposed to make the sequel to Wanted, which was another GRIN game that they had made. So we were working on a game called Wanted 2, but it never became anything. We did like one level and we were sort of prototyping and doing stuff. But then GRIN went bankrupt, and because they were doing this game with Square Enix. They were doing some Final Fantasy game, and it never. It's a pretty well known story here in Sweden, at least in the Swedish games industry. Like Square Enix, and that it just went. All of a sudden, they just stopped talking to them. I don't know exactly what happened, but all of a sudden, they just ran out of money and they went bankrupt. So we really didn't know what to do. But what we had a version of their engine called Diesel, which we were working in. And we used that to make a game called Lead and Gold. So I was QA on Lead and Gold, which is a third-person multiplayer Western shooter that we did. We worked for that on like 1 year or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I became a game designer because we started doing, like back then, we also did like work for hire for other studios still. So we got contacted by a studio called Easy, which was a subsidiary to DICE, and they did like free-to-play games for DICE. So they did Battlefield Heroes was their game that they had made, and they wanted to make another one of those, which was going to be based on Battlefield 2, which turned into a game called Battlefield Play for Free. So that was my first sort of game designer job. I did like all the weapons and some of the like skill trees and stuff for that game, which was like it was Battlefield 2, or like the maps were Battlefield 2, but then we did like a free to play version of it. And then I came back so I was actually working at EC in the DICE office for almost a year.
And their offices are in Stockholm too, right?
Yeah, they are located in Stockholm. We are really they're like 2 blocks away from our office. And then I came back to Fatshark again, and then we made a game called Krater, which was my first sort of real game designer job, which was a crazy experience because we were trying to make like this weird little RPG in like 10 months with like 10 people, and it was we totally overscoped it, and it turned out pretty cool, but it's a really strange little game that
it was like top down and then in post-apocalyptic Sweden, right? That was the premise of Krater.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a really cute little cool game, but I mean, we never really had time to really finish it. I think it's like when we released it, it was really hard to like look at the game because you just knew everything that you wanted to do and we never had time to finish. But like looking back at it now, I'm pretty proud of it because it's actually a pretty cool little game. It's a weird little game, but it's pretty awesome. And then we did Escape from Dead Island. We did the War of the Roses, War of the Vikings. We did a game called Hamilton's Great Adventure, and we did Bionic Commando Rearmed 2. Then we did Vermintide 1 and now Vermintide 2, I think.
How did that the Vermintide, I guess the Vermintide 1 come together? Like, how did you guys get the connection with Warhammer and that brand?
Yeah, it's a weird story. The game director for Vermintide, Anders, he's a hardcore old school Warhammer guy.
Oh, okay.
And he used to be our art director, and he's still like our art director, but now he's become more of a game director. So I think it was at the end of like War of the Roses or something like that. He felt like we have a really good way of doing melee combat, because both World of Roses and World of Vikings were like third-person melee combat multiplayer games. And wouldn't it be cool if we like did a Warhammer game? And so he just sent an email to Games Workshop's customer service and like said, "Hi, I'm a Swedish game developer. We want to make a Warhammer game. Who should I talk to?" And they were like, "Okay, you should maybe talk to this guy." And this was around the time when Take-Two, I guess. Yeah, Take-Two that went bankrupt, right?
I think it was THQ.
THQ, exactly. So that's around that time. So, like all of I think they had, I don't know what their deal was, but back then it was like almost only THQ that did Warhammer games. So we just saw an opportunity, and they like looked at our games and said like, "Yeah, it sounds like a really awesome idea." And we said, "So what we want to do is we want to take Left 4 Dead and mix it with Warhammer. We think this is going to be a really cool idea." And I think we pitched them some other idea as well. And they really liked the Left 4 Dead Warhammer idea. And then we flew over to them and talked to them, and then it just went from there. But it all started with an email to their customer service.
So what's pretty cool about this game is Vermintide is now canon within the universe of Warhammer. Can you tell us how you interact with Games Workshop on a day-to-day basis when you want to make new weapons, new characters, etc.?
Yeah, so they approve absolutely everything we do. Like every concept art, every line of dialogue, every asset. And then we do like fly-throughs for every level. So they really approve everything. But the thing is that we are as hardcore Warhammer fanatics as they are, so it's never been an issue for us at all, because we haven't I think there's like one thing that they have really like said, okay, that's taken it too far. It was doing like Vermintide 1, we wanted to do some kind of like a Skaven digging machine, and they thought it was too like sci-fi or something like that. But otherwise, everything has like gone through. We have very little problems with like us wanting to do stuff, and then that's just because like before we go to them, we have already had like the discussion in-house, like, is this okay? Can we do this? Is this Warhammer? Would a dwarf do this? Would an elf do this? And stuff like that. So we have like self-censoring before we get to them. So it's never been a problem for us.
Do they give you any creative direction in general, or do they just give you say, hey, go ahead, create something, and then you pass it along to them? What's the process like that way?
Yeah, but we have this constant discussions with them. Like, I think it was their idea to set it in the end times. I'm not sure about this because I wasn't actually part of that discussion, but I'm pretty sure it came from them because this was before the end times had happened. And I think they felt like, okay, we got this thing that's going to happen. It was like very hush-hush and very secret. Like, in like 1.5 years, we're gonna completely blow up the whole universe of Warhammer. So this is like a perfect fit for you guys. So you should jump on the end times train. And we were like, yeah, this is awesome. It's gonna be really cool to like be. And it was also really cool to be working on something that wasn't sort of known yet, and like was really fresh and was really happening at the same time as we were developing the game. So we were getting like the books of the end times maybe like a month before they actually hit the stores, but it was that sort of so we didn't know exactly what was going to happen either when we were developing the game. So we like got the book and started reading. Oh, okay, that's
that's what we're working on.
Yeah, so this is what's going on. So I think at least like end times I know came from them.
So as you know, we recently played the first game in the series. If someone listening to this has not played Vermintide or even seen Vermintide, what would you say the general pitch for the game is? What are the pillars of this game?
So the thing that we did when we designed Vermintide was that we had really strong pillars. So the first one was like stay true to Warhammer. That was our first thing. We wanted to show Warhammer in a way where we sort of as if it was happening for real, like not in a stylistic way, but in a like as realistic as we could do it. Like if Warhammer was a real place, how would it look and how would it feel? That was like our first pillar. Then the second one was co-op. So it's true to in like every design decision in this game, we make sure that we feel that it supports or like enforces co-op. So it's a very hardcore co-op game where you need to cooperate with your other players or you're going to die. Like we have it's in the same formula as, I mean, we're following like Left 4 Dead. Like we see Left 4 Dead as a genre more than a we see like Left 4 Dead, they created their own co-op genre, like where you actually need and requires you to cooperate, otherwise you will die. Like a lot of co-op games, you can just like, it's more fun to co-op, but you don't really have to. Like it doesn't really matter. You can just solo it and kill everything your own. And so we have in the same way as Left 4 Dead has, we have like specials that you can't take care of yourself. Like if you get caught one of these, you need to have your friends help you. And then what we wanted to add to it was like, we want to add a sense of progression. Was it for Vermintide 1? Like, so we wanted to add, we felt like if, like Left 4 Dead is an awesome game, but it's, what is it, like 14 years old now? So how could we make it feel fresh and like as a modern game? So we felt like we need some kind of progression. We need some kind of a loot system or something like that really keeps you playing and gives you an incentive to play more and do stuff like that. And also just to expand on what you can do. So we added some, in like Vermintide 1, we had it was pretty basic, the loot system, but it was, I mean, we had a lot of different weapons, so that wasn't so basic, but it was like the progression system wasn't that deep. We didn't have like, you leveled up, but it didn't really mean anything.
Don't sell yourself short with those. Whenever I rolled those dice and I got something new and cool, I was loving life.
Yeah. No, but what I mean with that is like, it's not an RPG.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's an action game first and foremost. It's not like a RPG where it's like the loot you get is sort of it's going to help you. It's going to make you a little bit more powerful, but in the end of the day, it's your skill that's going to sort of be the most deciding factor if you're going to survive or not.
Yeah, and that some of your progression is really tied to the weapons that you pick up through the loot system, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So before we ask you any questions about Vermintide 2, we wanted to ask you about your support for Vermintide 1. You put out tons of patches and tons of DLC for the game, and that's a costly thing to do. How did you decide that you wanted to support the game for so long?
Well, the thing with Vermintide is that how we could afford to do Vermintide, because it's self-published and self-financed, is that we created this engine called the BitSquid engine. We had a subsidiary company called BitSquid that we sold to Autodesk, like, what is it now, 5 years ago or something like that. And then it became the Stingray engine. So with the money that we made from that deal, we sort of put all of it into making our dream game, sort of. So we really could call the shots 100% on what we wanted to do. So when this was the first time we really had a chance to 100% support this game that we had made. So we were going to do it, basically. So we just, we decided early on that we're going to do like some paid DLC, and then in between those, we're going to have as much free content as we can and just keep working on the game. Because you really see with games like nowadays, if you support them and you update them with stuff, people are going to like stick around and you're going to find a new audience. And I mean, I think we sold maybe in the beginning, maybe first month, we sold maybe 300,000 copies or something like that. And that was awesome. And that was like all we really had to sell to sort of break even for the game. And then over the coming 2 years, we've sold over 2 million copies.
Wow, congrats.
That's just because we have continuously like updating the game, releasing new bigger like paid content updates with new levels, but also doing this free stuff in between. And I think that's how a game should be nowadays. Like look at like Rainbow Six is a really good example of I think Ubisoft in general are awesome at keeping their games alive nowadays. It's really impressive what they're doing. Like Rainbow Six, when it came out, it sort of felt like it was dead on arrival, but they've been pushing that thing and they've been adding to it, and now it's a really big game. Like it's one of the biggest like multiplayer games, and when it came out, it felt like this is not going to go anywhere, but now it's like it's really solid and you can like see people playing it all the time. So I think that's what you should do. If you have something that you really like and you really care about, you should just keep on adding to it. And so that's what we did.
Yeah, and it seems like you guys love to keep the community happy. You're growing like a fan base that follows you. How do you guys kind of pay attention to them and like maybe take some tips or suggestions for the game? How do you put that into the game, especially like late in development, especially for Vermintide 2? Like, so Vermintide's done. Now you guys are focusing on Vermintide 2. Like if someone, if you see a group on a Reddit page or something say, hey, we really don't like this type of NPC, like how do you take that info and how do you put it into the game?
I mean, it all depends. Some things we just can't fix, or it would cost us way too much. But if it's something that we can actually do something about, we try to do it. It's I think something also that happened with Vermintide was, it was, at least for us, the first game after like the streaming revolution happened. So we could watch people playing the game, and we could see what they were doing, and we could see how they were playing the game, and like in the most genuine way ever. Like actually see, okay, they are not understanding this, or this is really frustrating. And then of course we read like Reddit and Steam forums and everything like all the time. But also that can be sort of tricky because you don't know if it's like a true opinion, because it's a small minority it's a really vocal minority that are on Reddit, so you never know if it's going to be true. But being able to both have that, like you can go onto Reddit and you can read what people are saying, and then going and see people actually playing the game and see that, okay, this is probably something that we should fix. Has been awesome. So
it's pretty much what you're saying too is now we have to worry about Fatshark watching us in addition to the FBI with everything that we do.
Yeah, we're always lurking everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I mean, like I constantly read Reddit like on my phone when I'm like watching a movie and it's boring or something like that. I just pick up my phone and read the Reddit, or like not everything, but a lot of it. And we have a community manager. He's really active on the forums, and some of our guys are really active. I tend not to write so much because I'm afraid that what I write might become sort of I don't want to do promises that I can't keep, sort of. So I just try to not write anything. But I read everything, and we have a lot of people that read everything on the forums and stuff like that. So we try to keep
awesome.
Yeah.
Now with Vermintide 2, the big game coming up, what would you say are the biggest changes or the things you guys are most proud of in designing these levels coming up in Vermintide 2?
My job on Vermintide 2 has been I've been the designer and the producer of the world team, so I've been working on the levels mainly. But this goes through everything in Vermintide 2. It's just like so much bigger in scope in every possible direction. Like everything it looks better, it plays better. There's more of everything. It's just we've done our damnedest to just like make sure that every event is unique or special, and like it's just more of everything. Like in Vermintide, we had 10 different enemies or something like that, and now I think we have 25 or 30. Wow. I'm not really sure.
Do you have a favorite
of the enemies?
Yeah.
What would that be? It's hard. It's like picking one.
Yeah, I know. or like which one did you guys kind of like put together and say, wow, the players are gonna like this, or this is gonna be pretty neat, or anything in general like that?
Yeah, I think one of them that I'm really happy with, that it was because like the first design for the enemies, we had like me and the rest of the design team. It was in May 2 years ago, so it's less than 2 years ago. I took them all home to my house, and we grilled and we like sat and talked for a day and like discussed what we want to do. And we came up with the idea for the Chaos Spawn, which is one of the mini boss enemies, or like rat ogre type of enemies. And we were like joking around and like it would be really cool if he can like lift the player up and then use him as a weapon and then just start chewing him and throw him away and stuff like that. But we were like, oh, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Like that's the type thing. But and then we actually have it in the game, and that's really awesome.
That's cool.
It was like when we come up with, it's like, that's a good idea, but that's never going to work. But then
and now it's here.
For a long time, it seemed like it wasn't going to work because we were trying to do it like too complicated. But then why doesn't you just swipe and then you just has you and then it worked out and it was like, oh yeah. So he's pretty awesome.
But so in the first game there was 10 different enemy types. In this game there's 25, and that's because you have a completely different enemy class besides the Skaven, right?
Yeah, the Chaos faction, and more specifically the Nurgle Chaos faction, which is one of the Chaos is one of the, I'd say one of the main factions in Warhammer. They're the big ass warriors with the horns, and they're the archetypical Warhammer unit. If you don't know too much about Warhammer, and that's something that I can say too, just to sort of get it out there. I'm not a old school Warhammer guy. Before working on this project, I'm the sort of the straight guy in the group. I'm the one that has not like I'm not. You need somebody that doesn't know everything, so they can say, "Okay, I don't understand this. What is this?" Like or stuff like that. So I'm that guy. That's my job.
And you know that's good to hear, because we come from it. Like, I've played a few of the Warhammer games, the Space Marine specifically. Mo has played the RTS game, but we are not by any means people that engage.
Yeah, I played those as well, but I played like the video games, and I played like some Blood Bowl and stuff like that. And I knew about Warhammer, but I think I tried to get into it when I was small, but I was so bad at painting, so I just gave up instantly. But yeah, I think it's really important to have somebody like that on the team that can say sort of, okay, I understand that you think it's really cool that this guy is doing this, but for me, it just means nothing. And so, because we wanted it to work for people that don't know anything about Warhammer. I think that was really important. We wanted it to be a game that could sort of introduce you to Warhammer and be good. Even if it should work if you're a super fan, and it should work if you know nothing about it, sort of. So I'm the guy who's checking if it's going to work if you know nothing.
So one of the things that we saw when doing some research about the game was that you're adding career paths to the game to kind of add that little RPG flair. I know you're working on levels and the world, but can you give us a little bit of a taste of what to expect with those career paths? Yeah,
sure. So in Vermintide we had 5 different heroes. So it was a elf, a empire soldier, a dwarven ranger, and we had a witch hunter and a what's it called, bright wizard. So we wanted to, the thing one of the biggest sort of feedbacks we gotten from when we released Vermintide, that what people wanted more classes. But that is really hard for us to do, because it's so much work to get these. I mean, the way we tell the story is the banter in between the characters, and to add a 6th character is to write it's so much writing and so much dialogue and stuff that goes into that. So, and also we really liked our heroes, so we wanted to keep our heroes, but we also wanted to add lots of different new cool characters. So we decided that in between the games, or something happens and they can now choose between 3 different careers. So instead of having 5 different heroes, we in a way have 15 different heroes. It's just that they are played by the same 5 characters, sort of. So each character now has 3 different career paths to choose from, and even more than in the previous game, where really the only real difference between one hero to another hero was the different weapons they can use, and the weapons sort of dictated how they played. Now it's even like they all have a talent tree, so you can like spec them in different ways, which adds even more customizations to even within one career. And they also have like a passive ability that really sort of niches them, or not niches them, but defines them. And also a special ability, like an ultimate from like Overwatch, similarly, that sort of also defines their role in the party. So this time around, you can, like, we were really proud that we in Vermintide you could really sort of customize dependent on your playstyle. You could pick a hero and different weapons, and even if that hero was taken, you could play with one of the other heroes, and he would have weapons or she would have weapons that lets you play in a special, like, or a specific sort of playstyle that you wanted. But now it's just like we've taken that and just multiplied it by, I don't know, 5 or 10 or something like that. It's so much you can do. And that's really, really awesome. And I think that's the thing. And what some of that might scare some people out there, but trust me, we have been really, really, really careful to not like make this into an RPG where like the only thing that's important is like you have to level up and stuff like that. And it's there. It's gonna support you to play the game like how you want to play it. But the most important thing is still like the skill of the game.
Yeah. So it won't be overwhelming or anything like that. It's just pick up and play, and then if your friend comes over, they can pick up and play, kind of thing.
Exactly. And like the one other thing that was sort of the loot system in Vermintide 1 was, I mean, it worked and it was okay, but we got a lot of critique about it because it was pretty like sort of basic, and it was also the main problem with it was, at least from my standpoint, was like if you were really lucky or actually really unlucky, like the first drop you could get would be like a blue weapon. Yeah. And you can't really, there's only one better weapon in the game, and that's an orange weapon, like power-wise. So basically, if you get a blue weapon, the first drop you get, you are sort of screwed out of the whole loot system. It's like you're not going to progress anymore. So what we've done is we've added a power level system instead, so it will be much more linear, but that it doesn't mean that it's become like a like Destiny or a like World of Warcraft or something like that, where you will go from like doing no damage to doing insane amounts of damage. It still has the same sort of like when you start the game, you're going to be as in Vermintide 1 when you were playing with the basic game, basic items with like the white weapons, and at the end of the spectrum, it will be like you're playing with orange weapons or like. It's just that instead of making it so like. So I don't know how to explain this really, but it was like really jaggy. It was like you get a new rarity and you jump like one step, and then there's only like 3 steps in the game. Now it's going to be a much smoother ride, like from having really crappy stuff to getting really good stuff. And there's going to be
the power ramp is like it's slower, right?
Yeah, not necessarily slower. It's stable. It's like instead of it being like a steps, it's a curve sort of.
One of the things that I had a question about is like, so one of the things when I was playing Vermintide, I found that like the difficulty was like fine no matter what like level I was playing. The AI was really cool too. Like I'd never felt overwhelmed, and even when I was overwhelmed, everything was spawning pretty fluidly. How did you guys kind of tackle that? Was it just like where do you place the spawn places for each NPC? Like what's the thought process behind that?
It's completely random, or there's a system behind it that dictates where and what to spawn. So the thing is, like, if you are taking damage or if you are dealing a lot of damage, we measure that, and when you hit a certain threshold, we stop spawning stuff. Or like if you encounter a horde, you will peek out, and then you will have a little bit of a smooth ride after that. We're not going to spawn as much, and then we start spawning again, and then we're going to send you specials and stuff like that. And then if you take a lot of really hard beating, we're going to stop spawning and stuff like that. So there's a system that keeps control of how well you're doing. So if you're doing too well, we're going to start spawning even more.
Yeah, so keep the blood pumping pretty much. Keep you on your toes no matter what situation you're in.
So there's very limited Like it's only in like the end events of the levels, or like the event in the levels, where we actually sort of take control of the spawning and don't let the system decide. But even there we have some systems that sort of kick in if it's going too badly and stuff like that, or so to make sure that you have a sort of not a smooth ride, but a consistent ride. And sometimes also part of the system is also that we want these moments where it just goes bananas and you have everything at the same time, because that's where the really interesting things happen. Like, oh, it was insane. We were fighting a rat ogre, and then a horde came, and then this gutter runner came and he jumped me, and my friend came over and he helped me and stuff like that. So we want those type of sort of highs to happen as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember, like, I think there was, I can't remember what mission exactly I was playing, but Jacob, help me, or Victor, what's the stabbing Skaven called? The one that jumps on you with the green blades?
That's the gutter runner.
The gutter runner. So there's been some times where I'd be moving in one location and I remember getting killed by a gutter runner, and then the next time I come to that location, I just keep like looking around, head on a swivel, because I'm thinking it's going to come from the exact same spot, and sure enough, by the time I forget, I get attacked by it again.
I think like if you play the game, if you play it really much, you're gonna sort of start to learn the pacing, because if you play it the same way, it eventually, since it's a numbers game, it's gonna, if you play a level exactly the same, you might get a similar sort of experience, but it's impossible to do. But so like our really veteran players, they know, okay, around this corner, that's a bad place to get sort of jumped, and then they will know that they should sort of watch out for that. But there's no time in the game where that is a certainty, and that's just like the numbers aligning again, sort of that when that happens. So
we're kind of wrapping up here. We just have a few more questions. I want to ask you personally, what are you most excited to play or watch or read when you're done development on Vermintide 2?
Oh, I don't know. Right now, I'm pretty excited about the Black Panther next week. It looks pretty cool. I have two children who are 2 and 5, so I have no time to read. But otherwise, that would be pretty cool. I want to. Right now, I'm not really playing anything, so it's going to be cool to sort of be done with the game and just sit down and play a game. I usually like Far Cry pretty much, and Far Cry is releasing like 2 or 3 weeks pretty soon. I don't know. So that might be cool. Yeah,
number 5 is coming out very recently.
Hopefully that's good. I don't know. I felt pretty burnt out on 4, but we'll see. I just currently finished Assassin's Creed Origins, and I thought that was awesome. And I was really burnt out on Assassin's Creed. So maybe Far Cry.
The last question that we had is, can you tell us when the game is coming out and on what platforms? And then if there's anything you wanted to add that hasn't already been said, we'd love to know if we've missed anything here.
I can't really say when the game is coming out yet, but we will be announcing it pretty soon. Like really soon, hopefully. And then we are doing it on PlayStation and Xbox One, but I can't say anything more than that.
Great. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about Vermintide 2 or to the community before we close out?
So we are running, like we've started some secret technical tests, and the beta will be pretty soon. So if you want to get in on that, you should go to our website and sign up, and you can also get into it by pre-ordering the game. We're going to have a pre-order beta closer to launch. Otherwise, just go to any of our Reddit or our Steam forums and just give us feedback and stuff, what you want to see in the game. And we are closing in on release, so now's the time to say if you want something sort of. And just thank you for playing Vermintide. It's hard to imagine how much it's so weird to like when I was listening to your podcast, you sort of forget that there are actually people playing your game that you did, and it's really awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on. It was great talking to you, and thank you for talking about Vermintide.
And that's it. A big thank you to Victor Magnuson from Fatshark. If you want to follow him on Twitter, his handle is @Zarpan, @ZARPAN. If you wanted to follow us, you can find me on Twitter @Jacob McCourt and Moe MMURTADI. We tweet about the show at Left Behind Club on Twitter. And finally, if you like what you heard, consider joining our Discord channel. You can find the link to that at leftbehindgame.club. We'll talk to you soon.